Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 51A.
I'm Cam and this is Julie. Thanks for joining us for today's Torah portion, which is Korah. So we will be looking at Numbers 16, 17, and 18. As always, there's so much information. We have three main events this week. We have the rebellion of Korah and their destruction. We have the rod of Aaron that buds. And then we have the reaffirming the Levite and the priest role in chapter 18. A lot of that is a repeat, just reiterating, okay, now that I have once again proven that I didn't make a mistake by putting the Levites and the sons of Aaron in these roles, I'm going to now remind you guys this is what you need to do. Starting in chapter 16, now let's look at, this is really the bulk of everything. There's so much happening here with the sin of Korah. We really have where Korah is challenging three aspects of Moshe. He's challenging the priestly, the kingly, and the prophetic role. These are all the three roles also that Yeshua holds. When we look at the way Korah addressed this against Moses in the beginning, we see that he brings others with him. He's already kind of gotten the mob rule, which we know Torah says no mob rule. So we have this mob rule, and we have the people coming up and going, basically, yeah, who made you king? Who made you head over us? Because we're all special. And Korah really goes about this as if he is being a champion of the people, as if he's really concerned about how everyone is special. Now let's remember that Korah is a first cousin of Moses. They're cousins. And he is a part of the tribe or the clan who literally takes care of the inside of the inside of the tabernacle, meaning of the Levites. He's the one that draws the closest of all the Levites, yet he's still not happy with that. So he goes to champion the cause that we're all special, which that's true. We know from Exodus 19 that the Lord does say you're all to be a priest to me, all right, to the nations. So,
but within that we have our
within
roles.
that we have holy, holier, holiest. The Lord set that up. And what Korah's doing is he's fighting the position in which he's been given in order to have what somebody else has. Instead of being happy with the way he can function to make the whole body walk properly, he wants to have another role. By him having another role, the body won't function properly. I mean, we tend to forget that where we've been placed is important. Instead of using our eyes to see what we think they have better, let's use our ears to be obedient, to understand the promise that everything will work together.
And really it's pride.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
Pride says, well, I don't want this job. I want that job. The grass is always greener.
And I think a lot of that, too, is because we don't see the importance in what we do.
Yeah.
Because if man doesn't evaluate it as important, then obviously it can't be important.
Oh, yeah,
Instead of, again, listening to what the Lord said, if he said it's important and that's where he wants you, then that's where he wants you. Do what you're asked to do.
Right.
Don't buck the system. We see that with each area that's being challenged. We have this similarity back in Exodus with Pharaoh. When Pharaoh challenges, who is the God? I don't know him. Is he really in control of he gives those challenges.
Right.
And the Lord, with each one of the gods of the plagues, each one of those gods, he's answering those questions. We see that again with Korah. With each one of these, he answers those questions. We have the ground opening up. We have the fire, all the people killed with the fire, and then we have the plague that comes on the people. All right, so we have three judgments that happen in those three respects. Now, you can take Pharaoh and you can take Korah and put them together, and it's the same spirit. And I would suggest if you took Nimrod, if you took Pharaoh, Korah, and you can keep going, it's a spirit of what we would call Antichrist. There's a very clear understanding of when Korah comes with his guys, and when Korah comes with his guys and they address Moshe, then Moses says, tomorrow, this is what you're going to do. You're going to take your fire pots, okay? And then you're going to put incense in it. You're going to come towards me. I am assuming that those 250 people are all Levites. Because we already know from a little bit earlier, I believe it is in Numbers 3, a stranger does not come up to the Levites, or they die. But it also says a stranger doesn't come to the priest. That's 3:10, Numbers 3:10, or they die. So it kind of seems as if
they got past the Levite part.
Right. So now just the Levites are the one that are bringing.
Right.
Of course, they seem to be forgetting Leviticus 10. Obviously, they didn't have Leviticus 10 to read, but they're forgetting about what happened to Nadab and Abihu. That they put, right? It was a strange fire. It was with the same, the fire pots that they used. The same exact test was given. And I find this interesting because in chapter 18:9, it says about how the gifts are given to the priest from the fire. And I thought, oh my gosh, from the fire. So the first thing is fire. And this, no one but the priests were able to survive. Everyone else that came improperly, the fire is what killed them. The very first thing. Yet we see in Numbers 16, I believe it's 36, 37, we actually have Eleazar, the son of the high priest, who walks through the fires to collect the fire pans. Because the fire pans were being set apart, therefore they couldn't be used for anything else because they had already gone into the process of being set apart holy by approaching the Lord. So they can't be used for anything else. But I just was like, wow. So if fire is the very first thing, he's a consuming fire, you've got to get through the fire for anything else. Well, isn't that in our walk? We have to get through that fire. And, in Matthew, it talks about we'll be baptized with water and fire. Because that fire allows us to go through the process of being tried and true, meaning having all the gunk taken out so we can be that silver and that gold without the dross that he wants us to be. So that was kind of a side note. So continuing on with the idea of the Antichrist, all right. So like we said, first we had the fire pots. That's what that happened. Then you have where the earth opens up in Korah, okay, sucks up Korah. And both of those things, they say happen simultaneously. We don't ever really see where Korah is. We know that Korah in 16 at the beginning, he's with everyone at the tent of meetings on the tomorrow. But then a group of them go out because, see, Moses had called two guys, Danath and Abiram, to come. They say, we're not coming, and basically, who made you king? Well, the sages say that these are the two guys, the same two guys from Exodus 2:14, who challenged, remember Moses, and said, who made you king over us? All right, that these are the same guys. That spirit of just kept going. Now, I can't figure out why they even left with them to begin with.
Right.
I mean, if they're like, who made you king over us, why didn't they just stay in Egypt?
Yeah.
So we see even those who are like, I don't think that's really it, are still following. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of people who are following Messiah, but aren't really following Messiah, hence
they're doing
who
the
come
same
before
thing.
me, I don't know you.
They're doing the same thing that he did. Who made you king over us? They say he's king,
Right.
but they don't want to follow his commandments.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what you do. You follow a king's orders.
All with the lips, but not with the actions. So
Right.
we know Korah obviously is not hearing and obeying. He's decided he's going to do it his own way. So we don't know whether Korah is where the fire pots, pans are, or where we have these, like I said, these two guys, and Korah, they go to their tents, okay, because they didn't come out. So Moshe goes to them with the elders, and he basically says, hey, if you're not with these guys, you need to move away from their tents because everything of theirs is going down. Now, we know that all of the sons of Korah did not go down because they write Psalms and they are active throughout the rest of Scripture. You see the sons of Korah specifically named because we know they're not all of them, they didn't all go down. We also know from 16:1 of Numbers, there are 3 men named and one of them's name is On, and On is not mentioned after that. The sages also suggest that that's because he got smart. His wife and he got together and decided, that's a bad clan. Don't go there. Stay away. All right.
He repented.
He repented, right. Because, a lot of times this whole thing can start just from bad neighbors, keeping bad friends. Because in the camp where Korah is, and then right behind him is where the Reubenites camped. And these two guys, Danath and Abiram, they are Reubenites, which Reubenites were also considered the firstborn, if you remember. They were the firstborn. Reuben was the firstborn, but he lost that birthright.
So there's a little bit of a
And here we have for the Levites who are now considered the firstborn, they're like, well, then we should have that job of what the priests have. So they are in they have a similar sob story.
Yeah.
Misery loves company. I guess they're hooking up together for that very reason. So I'm still tracking on the Antichrist thing. So we don't really know where Korah is. Now, if you remember back in Numbers 6, when it's listing the different the different princes of each of the tribes, when we get to Judah, that's mentioned first. It doesn't say the word prince. It just says the leader, or it just says this guy, okay, from Judah. And then everyone else, it's the prince of, prince. It suggested the reason why there is no mention of the word prince is because Nahshon is not the prince of Judah. Messiah is. Yeshua is the one, okay? So they leave that blank. So I suggest maybe the reason why we don't know exactly where Korah is when this happens, we assume it's when it opens up he goes in, but it doesn't specifically say he goes in. I would suggest because it makes us look towards Revelation. Revelation, the only other people who are thrown into an open pit is the beast and the Antichrist. That's Revelation 19. We also know Revelation 20 that Hasatan at the end is thrown in, he and death are thrown into the pit.
Well, if you look at the things that happen with the fire pans and with there's patterns.
Yes.
So it would make sense that Korah is not mentioned anywhere because the spirit of Antichrist goes all the way through.
Right.
All the way to the end.
And there are exactly, just like for Messiah, or for the tribe of Judah, it's the same thing.
The prince, yeah.
Because he's going to
active
show
all
up
the way through.
Right, over and over. And what does he do? He's the
so
accuser.
Christ is active and the Antichrist is active.
They're
all
both
the way
active. And here we have Moshe, and here we have Korah. And Korah is speaking against him for the people.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that what happens later? I mean, in the spirit of Antichrist, in his whole thing, going to be, what about the people? Let's bring them all in. I mean, it is going to be an angel of light. Bring them all in. I just want all the people to be equal.
But
God
we
never
don't
set us
want
up
to
as
do
equal.
it that way.
Right. We do not want to do it the way that Korah did.
Well, I mean, they say bring all the people in, but we don't want to do it the way God set it up.
Oh,
let's do it
right,
the way we think it should be done.
Exactly. And that is what that spirit of Antichrist is going to do.
That's scary.
Right? There's always going to be those two roles playing until the end, right?
Oh, and Moses comes out and says, come over here. Just like in Revelation, he says, come out of her.
Right.
Babylon.
Oh, yeah, that's
It's
good.
Like, come out of her.
Yes, because why? Because she's going
going
destructive.
down.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I like that. We have already seen the Korah type with Hasatan has, when Yeshua first came, he challenged him as the prophet. Now in the heavenlies, it talks about him going up and accusing. We have that example in Job. He is accusing us to the high priest to show that he can't do anything about it. And when he returns, Yeshua does, as king, he will challenge him in the kingly role for the final battle. Because kings are the ones who fight battles, not prophets and not high priest.
And he's challenging us as the body to not follow the king's orders.
Right, because if we are disobedient, then one, we won't call him back. So he can't come back. And two, we won't be the light to call people in. As a body must be brought together tight, just like atoms. If atoms come together, molecules come together tightly, they form something of substance. But when they're just free floating, it's air.
Yeah.
There's nothing of substance to grab a hold of. So we've got to be able to all
Bunch of
work
hot
together.
air.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. When we're not all close together, we're just a bunch of hot air. I like that. Time is a ticking, so let's go to chapter 17 real quick. We see in 17:5, it says, and it shall be the rod of the man who I choose buds, and I shall rid myself of the grumblings of the children of Israel, which they grumble against you. So they're grumbling against Moses and Aaron, but the Lord shows right there, no, they're grumbling against him. Because he's the one that set them in authority, and now basically they're saying, we don't like what you did. Grumblings, okay, if you look up the Hebrew for it, it has two meanings. One means to dwell overnight, like really hunker in, and the other means to, complain, grumble. And I'm like, isn't that interesting? Because when we grumble, we do hunker down, right? That becomes our
bondage.
Our way, our bondage. So we see that the last time that the children of Israel grumble against the Lord or his leaders is right here in chapter 17. There is no more. And the Lord says, I'm going to rid myself of it. And he does. So each man, one leader from each tribe, brings a limb, or a dead stick, a rod, okay? Now remember, none of these are the leaders that just protested against in the rebellion of Korah, or in the rebellion of the people who come the day after Korah and say, yeah, you're going to kill us, because that seems to be the same cry through the whole thing. So anyway, so these are not the men that were killed in that plague, which I think was almost 15,000 people died in that plague. That was at the end of 16. So these are new leaders. Now I'm thinking these leaders are going to be very careful, because they've just seen what's happened to all those others. So they're like, I guess I'll give a rod.
Yeah.
And then from Levite, the tribe of Levite, they give Aaron's rod. Obviously, you've got to have one that's going to be a winner. So he puts his in. It's taken into where the Ark of the Covenant is, all right? And it blossoms. We have a dead stick, death, coming to life. Hello, Yeshua, right?
Resurrection.
Resurrected. The word for almond needs to be awake, sleepless, to be alert, diligently watching.
Ooh.
So the one who is diligently watching, the rod, who's diligently watching, who is not asleep, is the
Who's
one
awake.
who serves. Who awake. Now, this is then put into the Ark of the Covenant, all right? That rod, Aaron's rod, is put in there for the reason of proving the rebels, making them be quiet. So, obviously, everyone saw it there. So, inside the Ark, we have the manna, and we have the tablets, and now we have the rod, all right? We have three things, all these testifying to the ruler, to the bread, and to the Torah. All these testify to who Yeshua is. It's my thought that all three of these things are going to be used when Messiah comes back. They're going to be used to prove things, that he is the bread, that he is the living Torah, and that he is, like Moses, the one that can give the stick to who's going to be the high priest at that time. Granted, his high priest role is over when he returns. He's in the kingly role. But he's the one that can give that. And when he gives that to son of Zadok, who's going to be a priest, no one will be able, it will hush the rebellion. All those who think they should have it, it doesn't matter. That will then also quell their grumblings. So not only is he ending their grumblings now, but for eternity, he's taking care of, he's going to answer all those questions even for eternity.
And we have a slew of people who have usurped the priesthood that the Lord set up.
We would love to sit and talk about this more and more and more, because again,
Because we can talk.
yeah, that's true. And like I always say, there's so much information. I hope that this will at least, again, give you a springboard, something to think about, and really to sit and reflect on, what of these traits are we doing? Where are we accusing our Messiah of not having the lordship, of not being the priest for us before the Lord, and of not trusting the words that he's told us as a prophet, that he's told us will happen, and not trusting that? To really stop and look in our lives where we are violating those things, so that we can totally give them over to him and allow him to be the one who reigns. We thank you so much for joining us this week for Doc Talk. We will see you on the flip side with Julie and the Brit Hadashah.
Shalom.